My son forced me to choose my ex over him because of his infidelity. I am a 56-year-old woman with 2 children, Bob, 30, and Alice, 27. This situation revolves around Bob. He was married to Ruth, 28, but their marriage ended 5 years ago when Ruth found out Bob was cheating on her while she was pregnant with my granddaughter. I was deeply disappointed in my son, as I had raised him to be better. As a single mom, my husband passed away years ago, and I only remarried after my kids were in their late teens. I am confident my late husband would not have approved of Bob's cheating. So, to cut a long story short, Bob, Ruth, and I had a big argument. I expressed my profound disappointment in Bob, asking how he could betray his wife like that. Bob yelled at me, saying I am his mother and should support him, not Ruth. I refused, stating I would never support his infidelity. My daughter, while thinking Bob was wrong, stayed neutral. Bob was furious and left. I only saw him again during the divorce hearings. I left him messages saying I was open to talking, but he never replied. Ruth, being an orphan, saw me as her mother even after the divorce. She would visit and bring me gifts like flowers or cookies and continued calling me mom. I enjoyed spending time with her and my granddaughter. About 3 years ago, I set Ruth up with John, the son of my friend Patty. Ruth and John hit it off, and he became a good father figure for her daughter. Recently, Ruth and John got married, and Ruth asked me to walk her down the aisle, as she had walked alone at her wedding to my son. I was delighted and agreed. When Bob heard the news, he called me, yelling that I was wrong to maintain contact with Ruth. He forbade me from attending the wedding, insisting that since they were divorced, I should cut ties with her. I told him he was being irrational and reminded him that his poor choices led to this situation. I attended Ruth's wedding despite Bob's objections. He found out and was furious, calling me horrible names and accusing me of being a bad mother for supporting Ruth over him, while my husband said Bob had a point, and my daughter disagreed. I now wonder if I was wrong to go to Ruth's wedding. Edit: my son has emailed me, asking to meet. I guess I have to meet him now. More info: I am a 56-year-old woman with a son, Bob, 30, and a daughter, 27. My husband died when my daughter was 5. The death was a shock to Bob, and I did my best to comfort him, taking him to therapists and trauma experts who all said he was well behaved. The only father figure he had was my brother, a disciplined man. I tried my best to be a good parent, putting dating on hold to focus on my kids. I taught them important life lessons and told them about their dad, a man of dignity and morals. My son started dating Ruth when he was 20. They met at a restaurant where Ruth worked part-time. I liked Ruth, as she was well-mannered and kind-hearted. They married 2 years later, after Ruth completed her degree and began teaching kindergarten. Bob often complained about her long hours, which I thought was irrational. I explained that Ruth had a life outside of their marriage. A year later, they fought again when Ruth wanted to pursue a master's degree. Bob objected, fearing it would cause trouble. I tried to stay out of their conflicts until Ruth told me Bob had threatened to leave if she pursued her degree. I confronted Bob, taking offense since I had worked hard to support the family and started my own business. A few weeks later, Ruth announced her pregnancy and abandoned her master's plans. When Ruth discovered Bob's infidelity with a mutual friend, she was devastated. We had a family meeting where Bob claimed Ruth didn't love him and made him feel unimportant, while his mistress fulfilled his needs. He believed he was wasting his 20s by playing family with Ruth, who he felt prioritized education over him. I reminded him that I also valued education, but he argued that it was different. They argued, and Bob called Ruth derogatory names. Bob is an absent father paying child support but rarely seeing his daughter. He went low contact with me when I refused to support his infidelity. Meeting his mistress, I found her unpleasant and untrustworthy. She claimed she was saving Bob from a bad marriage. I told Bob I wouldn't attend his wedding if he married her. Despite being more to blame, his mistress knew they were married. Recently, Ruth married John and asked me to walk her down the aisle. When Bob found out, he called me names and forbade me from attending, calling me a hypocrite for not attending his wedding. I told him to talk to me when he was calm, feeling like a failure and disappointing my late husband. I sometimes regret having Bob as my son but still love him despite his actions. Update: thanks for the supportive comments, though some were hateful. My son emailed me wanting to talk. I set ground rules for civility, and he agreed. When he visited, he seemed remorseful, crying and admitting his mistakes. He realized he treated Ruth poorly and regretted it, especially after seeing his daughter call John dad. I told him he used Ruth for his needs and didn't truly love her. I explained my relationship with his father was based on love, not needs. Bob admitted his mistakes, blaming his wife for his misery. I told him to stop blaming others and take responsibility. He agreed to apologize to Ruth and his sister and try to be a better father. I told him I still loved him and would support him, hoping he would improve. Update: things are better now. My daughter moved out, which feels empty, but I'll manage. My husband and I discussed our feelings about our late spouses, and he was understanding. Ruth and John are expecting a child, and Ruth asked me to be the godmother. My son is separating from his wife and is in therapy. He's trying to mend his relationship with his daughter, who visits at my house. Bob is making an effort to improve, and I'm proud of him for acknowledging his mistakes. I hope things continue to improve for him. My stepdaughter calls me mom, and her biological mom loses it. I, a 34-year-old woman, married the man of my dreams last month, a 44-year-old man. He has a 16-year-old daughter from his previous marriage. I've been in her life for 4 years, trying to be a friend and trustworthy adult. She's a great kid, and we have a close relationship. One important detail is that she's on the autism spectrum. After our honeymoon, she told me I was the most considerate person in her life and asked if she could call me mom. I was taken aback but told her I would love that. She was excited and hugged me. Later, I told my husband about it, and it hit me that I had become someone's mom, which made me emotional. This morning, she called me mom, which felt amazing but also overwhelming. I don't feel I've earned the title, but am determined to try my best. Last month, I gained both a husband and a daughter, which is a pretty good deal. Update: my husband has 2 children from his previous marriage, a 16-year-old autistic daughter and a 26-year-old daughter. When they divorced, his ex-wife wanted custody of the older daughter, leaving him with the younger one. The younger daughter always felt unloved by her mom. Recently, the older daughter got a job in her field and wanted to have dinner with the family. We went to a restaurant and things were civil until my stepdaughter called me mom loud enough for her biological mom to hear. She reacted badly, asking why she did it. The older daughter intervened, and we moved on, but the evening was awkward. My stepdaughter apologized, thinking it was her fault, but we assured her it wasn't. Both my husband and stepdaughter received a long message from his ex-wife, accusing me of being disrespectful. My husband felt bad for our daughter, and I felt guilty for not discussing how she should refer to me at dinner. I hate seeing my stepdaughter upset and understand why my husband divorced his ex-wife. Last week, my stepdaughter read me a message from her older sister, apologizing for what happened and wanting to reconnect. It was a heartfelt message, and I was surprised by her kindness. Later, the older sister texted me, wanting to get to know me better since I'm now her stepmom. She suggested dinner and a movie with the 3 of us, which went well. My younger stepdaughter chose the movie and loved it, though we didn't get it. During dinner, the older sister admitted she misjudged me and understood why I'm now mom to her sister. It was a great night, and I'm happy to have their support. Update: I've been posting a lot about my husband's ex-wife and my stepdaughter. Tonight, I got a call from his ex-wife, who was drunk and said hurtful things. I recorded the conversation and tried to stay calm. She claimed she deserved full custody of my stepdaughter and made derogatory comments about me. I blocked her number and planned to tell my husband in the morning. Her words hurt, but I trust my husband and love my stepdaughter. Update: the ex-wife backed off after learning about the recording. My stepdaughter admitted she called me mom intentionally to upset her biological mom due to unresolved feelings. She feels bad about it, and I reassured her. Update: the ex-wife called again, apologizing for her behavior and wanting to make amends. I'm cautious, but we'll see how things develop. I told my husband, and we'll decide what to do. Posting updates on my profile now. The ex-wife apologized, but my guard is up. She caused a lot of stress, and I'm not interested in a relationship with her unless she shows significant improvement. For now, I'm grateful for my family, and we'll figure things out as they come.